All right, everyone, welcome back to Happy Crump and Wargaming. We are talking about move blocking today. This is move blocking mastery of the game of 40,000, of Warhammer 40,000. So, I am Jonathan Arkin. I am a WTC member of Team Norway, loud and proud. And I am a pretty good 40k player who's trying to become great. And I'm going to share all of my tips and insights with you guys on my journey. So this is going to basically apply to anyone who plays competitively, anyone who plays casually. Because the reality of the situation is if you play casually but you don't understand a few fundamentals of the game, it's just you're missing out on a huge portion of fun. So I'm not talking about being a jerk about making everything perfect in competition. I'm just making the game fun by understanding really fundamental movements in the game. And this is for sure fundamental. So let's talk about move blocking today. So what is move blocking? If you look at move blocking, fundamentally what it is you're physically putting models in place to stop the enemy from being able to move their models up the field. And you can never ever end a movement within 1 inch of an enemy. No, so this is actually a really cool strategy to make it so vehicles can't move at all. Now, one thing that we're going to do in this video, so just bear with me for a few more seconds, is I'm actually going to be giving you live examples of how to do this so that you can learn how to physically actually do the move blocking. Because sometimes it's great when you hear the term move block, but it's like, all right, but how do I do it? So we're about to find out in about 5 seconds. So I'm just going to switch to a TTS view, and we're going to talk about this. Last thing before we switch to that view, though, is let's talk about pre-game movement blocking. One of the most powerful ways to move block is going through the pre-game portion of it. So here is where you get people. There's 2 different types of like pre-game movements that you have in the game. You've got scout moves, and then you've got infiltrate moves. Scout moves are the people who get to move before the first turn of the game, and then infiltrators are the ones who get to deploy in no man's land. And these are the 2 most powerful sources of move blocking in the game. And I'm about to demonstrate how that works for you through the magic of using computers. We'll just switch to a tabletop simulator view like this. Boo! Hello! Now we are on tabletop simulator. So what I've gotten done here is I've laid out a little bit of a deployment. So I'm primarily an orc, a Gene Stealer Cult player, and a Custodes player. So I've got 2 extremes here set up for us. Gene Stealer Cults are basically the best army in the game at move blocking, with the exception of maybe Eldar. Orcs are very susceptible to being move blocked. So I've laid this out for us here. So this is on, which mission do I have this on? This is on Death and Zeal. And it's a map that's pretty dang tough to deploy on for the orcs. And honestly, it's not the easiest for the Gene Stealer Cults either. Now, when we're looking at the Gene Stealer Cults here, we have the Jackals. And the Jackals are really fast, and they get a pre-game move. So let's look at how would we actually move block. First thing you need to do is you need to identify who you want to move block. In the Orcs case here, we want to make sure that this battle wagon, which is full of a bunch of knobs, it's just like 600 points of death, doesn't get up the battlefield to crush us, which it definitely looks like it's trying to do. So we need to make sure this thing can't move. So the only avenue this battle wagon can really go through is this area right here. It can't go this way because it has its own troops in the unit in the way, and it's just going to be a long way. So we need to make sure this battle wagon can't move. So before the first turn of the game starts, what's going to happen is the Gene Stealer Cults get to do a pre-game move. And they get to do this after you decide who goes first, which is really important. So let's say the Gene Stealer Cults get to go first. Well, our Jackals are going to move up 9 inches. And they're going to go... All right, 9 inches. You'll have to forgive me. I'm doing this demonstration, so sometimes my measurements might not be completely perfect. But they're just going to go 9 inches up. All right. And then after that 9 inches, that's a pre-game move, which means they still get to do their normal game move, which is 14 inches. So afterwards, they'll just go 14 inches. Right here. Right here. Right here. Right here. So effectively what they have done, if they have made it impossible for our battle wagon to get out of the deployment zone turn 1. Because what they've done is they have stopped their movement more than an inch away from this battle wagon, which means they're not in engagement range. So they're not fighting, they're not planning on charging, they're just going to stay right there. Which means when it goes to the orc's turn, the battle wagon can effectively move 1 inch in the charge phase. And that is all the movement they're going to have, which blunts the amount of death and destruction that's coming out of that battle wagon by a whole heck of a lot. Then what the orc player is really going to be praying for is they're hoping that this battle wagon is going to be able to kill this unit of Jackals. And if they can't, they're going to be blocked there for 2 whole turns. Oh, which is brutal. okay? Which can basically defeat the entire game just by using 1 unit of jackals here. Now, how does the orc player defend against this alpha strike? Well, there's a couple of different ways. One way we've already got laid out here for you, and this is Boss Zagstruck. He's a special character. So characters have what's called a heroic intervention, which we'll go really in depth on another video. But for right now, what the purpose of it is, if a character is within 3 inches of an enemy unit after after all charges have been declared, he can heroically intervene and move into combat. So right here, since these jackals are within 3 inches of the battle wagon and Boss Zagstruck, he's going to get to move in and kill and attack the jackals. Who knows, maybe he kills all the jackals and frees up the battle wagon for the next turn. But the only thing that has to happen, realistically, is just these 2 jackals here need to survive Boss Zagstruck's attacks. And then it doesn't matter if he killed the rest of the unit, because then the battle wagon still can't move. So heroic interventions are a good way to kind of manage yourself from being move blocked, but they're not foolproof. Instead, there's a much better way to do it. Enter infiltrators, which is what we spoke about a little bit before. So I'm just going to take these jackals back to the deployment zone, and I'm going to show you how the orc player can defend against this first turn huge move block. So let's just put these guys back in their deployment zones, blah, blah, blah. They're basically there. I'm not super worried about being super precise right now. Just got to get them back to there. Okay. So how do we defend against this horrible alpha strike? Well, enter infiltrators. Orcs have commandos. Commandos are amazing units. Where did I place them? I put them right here. Most armies have access to something like an infiltrator or a pregame move. So like Gene Stealer cults have the pregame move for their jackals, for example. Orcs have infiltrators, which means they can deploy in no man's land, which is a really, really, really powerful ability that a lot of people just don't quite understand how to utilize. So I am going to show you how to use it both offensively and defensively. The goal here is to make sure that the Gene Stealer cult player doesn't go first and block our battle wagon. So there's a few rules about infiltrators. Yes, they can deploy in no man's land, but they still have to stay 9 inches away from the enemy, and they have to stay 9 inches away from the enemy deployment zone. So I'm just going to put a bubble here that'll show us how far we are. So we just got to move this guy backwards ever so slightly just to make sure that he's 9 inches away. Then this guy can do the same. All right. So what you can see here is I can use these knobs or these commandos to really mess with deployment for the Gene Stealer cults player. Because if I place them like so, all within 2 inches of each other, which by the way is not hard to accomplish because you just got to be within 2 inches to stay in coherency. All of these models now are going to be 9 inches away from the deployment zone, and they're all going to be legally within range of each other. So we'll just move him a little bit further here, move this guy here, move this guy here, and then this guy here. So what happens now is when the Gene Stealer cult player gets first turn, they cannot end their pregame move within 9 inches of my infiltrators. So you can understand how incredibly powerful this is. What this means is that the jackals can't come here with a pregame move. The only place they can really go is they can go backwards, or they can go all the way over here, which doesn't help them much at all. Now, they still get to use their normal movement to come on up, and they can bring their normal movement here, and they can use that to shoot and kill all the commandos. But at that point in time, we as the orc player do not care anymore. Because, okay, let's say the jackals shoot and they kill all the commandos. Well, all the commandos die. Hooray, we don't care, because what has happened now is now our battle wagon is officially free to move. Let's say some of our knobs want to jump into the middle, and some of them want to jump out and kill the jackals and then move up. Or let's say the knobs want to jump into the middle, one unit of knobs jump into the middle, then the battle wagon moves up with Boss Zagstruck, and they both charge the jackals. And then after these jackals die, we consolidate our 3 inches. We still got to do our full movement because our infiltrators allowed us to stop this pre-game move block. How freaking powerful is that? It's game-winning, people, which is why in Orcs, I find it mandatory to have 2 units of commandos. I think you'll find in most armies, you're a lunatic if you don't have at least 1 unit of infiltrators. Because this 9-inch bubble that the infiltrators protrude also mean that the enemy's infiltrators cannot be deployed within 9 inches of your infiltrators. So Now we show how we can use our infiltrators defensively against enemy alpha strikes and pregame moves and stuff. How do you think we can use our infiltrators to move block our enemy? Well, let's find out. We'll just put these jackals back to where they were. Okay. So let's say we are going to be putting our commandos in the exact same spot. Sorry, I just took them off. Let's just put them right back where they were. Okay, so the commandos are in basically the same spot. Well, now the first turn comes, and it's the orcs who get to go first. So the Gene Stealer cults, let's say they choose not to do a pregame move. What can we do? Now, we can move up and we can charge and try to kill them, but they've got some like flamers and stuff in there. Maybe we don't want to charge that unit and suffer their overwatch. So instead what we can do is we can just advance our orcs, and maybe we roll pretty decent, and we can move block them, which is freaking incredible. Because what does this do? It means his big unit of jackals will not be able to stop our advance, which means now our battle wagon is going to get to move all the way up. So next turn when we wah, our knobs are going to get out right here, and they're going to charge and kill his entire army. So we have effectively used our infiltrators to be both a super defensive unit and a super offensive unit without ever even attacking our opponent. Now, sometimes, sure, maybe you do want to charge the jackals there, and that's just bonus if you want to. But you don't have to. You can simply just move block him. He can't ever move out of his deployment zone at all, because if he were to move past you, he would have to pass within an inch of your units. And remember, you can never end a movement. You can never move, sorry, not even end. You can never move within 1 inch of an enemy unit. Otherwise, you would be in engagement. So it's impossible for him to move out over here. That allows us to advance our forces. All right, so I think we understand how to use our infiltrators and our other scout moves for our pregame movement to do some move blocks. Let's look at some interesting interactions for screening. Now, what you'll notice is that we've also very effectively screened our Gene Stealer cult's super cool characters. So we have this Patriarch here, and let's say he's a super nasty Twisted Helix Patriarch who can kill anything and has a lot of psychic spells. Or maybe our opponent took warp rituals. We need to make sure we kill their psychers. Well, I have to get to this Patriarch, but unfortunately, our Gene Stealer cult player is smart, and he screened us. As it is right now, if we go first and we're going to try to move our commandos up, they're 6 inches so that they can charge that Patriarch, they physically can't. It's actually impossible. The only ones they can charge, they would have to charge this Rock Grinder and these jackals, and they're not getting through them. So what this is called is a screen, which means you can't get to his fragile units. And we're going to see screening utilized a whole bunch. I had an entire slide made on screening, but I got excited and started talking about it early, so we're just going to go on with it. So this is called a screen. So when you hear people like on The Art of War or on Northern Knights Gaming or Tabletop Tactics or any of these people who are really good like streamers who are talking about the game, when they use these terms screening and move blocking, this is what they mean. So this is, right now we have these commandos. They're trying to get into the Patriarch, but they can't because he's screened by the jackals. Let's say I was playing with the Tau and I wanted to kill that Patriarch. I can't because he's also lookout sirred by the jackals and by the Rock Grinder. So he's got lookout sir, so it's impossible to shoot him and it's impossible to charge him. So he is effectively being screened. Let's go for another example of screening. I've got over here a Magus, and this Magus is nice and squishy, so it's going to die if anything touches it in combat. And it has a nasty knob on Smash a Squig in front of it that's just looking to devour the Magus's soul. But our opponent is a wily coyote and has decided to screen his unit. So he's going to put a bunch of neophytes in front of the unit. Now what the neophytes do here is their entire purpose is to die. And our opponent, our Gene Stealer cult's player, doesn't care if they die, because what they're going to do is they're going to make sure this knob can never kill them or can never get to them. Let's say we got really, really lucky and we shot some pistols and a mortar or something and we killed some of these neophytes. So this guy died and then this guy died, or we'll leave him where he is, and then this guy died and then this guy died and then like this guy died and then even this guy died. Even now with just these 3 guys, it's very challenging to charge this Magus, because what's going to have to happen is their knob's going to have to roll a really high charge. He's going to roll 7. So that's going to be like a 10-inch charge just to get to the Magus. So it's really not something that you want to risk anything on, and realistically, he's just going to charge these neophytes. Which means our Magus is going to live to the next turn, because when the Noblin Smasher Squid comes in, sure, he has to stop. He can't go any further than the enemy unit. So once he kills these neophytes, he'll do his consolidation movement, and he gets 3 inches extra movement. Now, this is where our opponent messed their screen up, because sadly, they were too close to their screen, which allowed the Noblin Smasher Squid to actually get into combat. So now the Magus is tagged. They can still cast psychic powers, but if they choose to fall back from combat, they can't cast anything. So when you're setting up this screen, we have to do it a little bit smarter. So let me just put these guys back here. So if you're going to plan on using, say, these neophytes to screen your Magus, you need to make sure your unit is going to be further than the 3 inches that he can consolidate. So about 2.6 inches will be fine, because each one of these bases is, if you do the measurement, is about 0.8 inches on a 24 millimeter base. So here now, if our Noblin Smasher Squid goes all the way in and he kills them, we'll just back him up just a wee bit more. Say those neophytes die, then he'll consolidate his 3 inches in. Oh, and we're still in. So that was me doing a bad measurement. See, we're all learning together. So the Magus really, in all reality, has to be a good 4 inches, 3.5 to 4 inches behind the neophytes to remain safe. So the Nob kills the neophyte, he consolidates his 3 inches forward, and now the Magus is completely safe. So if you have a 24 millimeter base, you're going to want to be at least 3.5 to 4 inches behind the models that are screening you. Now, how do you, as the Orc player, or the Custodes player, or the whatever player, the Tau player, no, probably not Tau, but how do you deal with the opponent setting up screens? Well, there's a bunch of different ways of doing it. So one thing you can do is you can shoot them. So let's say we have a kill rig over here, and we're like, oh, we got to get rid of that screening so that I can charge the Magus, because you can't shoot the Magus, right? Because the Magus is under Lookout Surge effects. So let's say I shoot and I kill the screen. Well, then suddenly, no problem. Now the Noblin Smasher Squid can make a charge into the Magus and kill the Magus. So you can use basically any army to do that, because every army's got shooting, except for World Eaters, eat your heart out. But they've got other cool abilities as well. But let's say we're playing someone like the Orcs, who have really bad shooting, and we can't reliably, at least, shoot that screen dead. How do we get past that? Well, you've got certain units that have special abilities. One of those is the Noblin Smasher Squid. He's got a special ability that allows him to do damage in the charge phase. So always be careful of sneaky shenanigans like this. This is one of the questions you need to ask your opponents before you start the game. So he'll roll his charge, and then what happens after he charges in, he gets to roll 5d6. And these 5d6 on 4 ups will cause mortal wounds in the charge phase, which also, by the way, makes him exceptionally good at killing like Abaddon or phase-locked characters. So let's roll our dice. Okay, cool. And he rolled none, so I'm just going to roll again so I can make my point. All right, cool. So let's say he rolls 3 4-ups, and those 4-ups kill these neophytes. Cool, those neophytes are gone, but the Gene Stealer Cult player is happy. He's like, okay, cool, you can consolidate forward. Not so fast, because the Noblin Smasher Squid has an ability to charge again if he kills the screen when he charges. So he'll just charge again, and then he'll kill the Magus. So that's one way that the Orcs in particular will be able to deal with these screens. You, for whatever army you're playing, whether you're playing Chaos Space Marines, normal Marines, AdMech, or any of these guys, you would probably just shoot the screens to death and then charge the unit that you need to be charging. So where will you really see a lot of these screens? You're going to see these screens all over the place. You'll see these screens with Guard especially. So Guard will have like 10 infantry troops, which cost them no points basically, in front of all the Leman Russes. So even if you first turn charge and you kill their infantry, you're not going to tag their Leman Russ tanks, and their tanks will then just, in their turn, be able to kill anything. So there's one other really important concept I want to talk about in today's lecture, and we're just going to really, really lightly touch on how do we use Lookout Sir to help our characters defeat screens and move blocks. So typically speaking, having a beast boss on Squigosaur right here is fairly dangerous, right? Because this character could be shot to death. But he is Lookout Sir'd, which is really, really cool, which means that you can't shoot him unless he's the closest model. So what's the Gene Stealer Cult player going to do? Well, he's going to take this Rock Grinder up, and he's just going to make sure that that character is the closest model, and then he's going to shoot him. See? 8.4 to him, and then 10.7. Not so fast. Remember, we had our infiltrators. So let's say I had this unit of infiltrators, or we had this unit of commandos, and they were hanging out right here. Now, the really cool thing about Lookout Sir is it says you can target the character if they are the closest enemy unit that's visible. Well, I think it's just closest enemy unit. It says closest enemy unit, not closest eligible enemy unit. So even though this rock grinder can't see these commandos, since they are closer to the rock grinder, and these Gretchen are close enough to provide Lookout Sir to the beast boss, you still can't shoot the beast boss. And how cool is that? It's pretty amazingly powerful, and it's a tool more and more people need to be using. I always like to have my characters set up so that they're within Lookout Sir of 2 units. So let's be within Lookout Sir of these Squidcogs too. So say the Goliath rock grinder fires and kills all these Gretchen. You still can't shoot the beast boss because he's Lookout Sir here. Now this beast boss then serves 2 other functions. Because let's say these jackals advance and they're like, hey, we're just going to move block you. Well, remember, he's a character, so if you're within 3 inches of him, he's going to eat you and kill you. So they have to stay outside of 3 inches of him, which means their move block is much less effective. So that is a class on move blocking. Characters are harder to move block, especially if you're like a Custodes player who has a 6-inch hero intervention. So certain armies are really hard to move block. Custodes are definitely one of those. Orcs are easier to move block, but they have the tools to avoid it by using infiltrators. So every time you make a list, make sure you have those infiltrators. Make sure you're aware of your opponent's pre-game moves, because that is how they're going to beat you in the deployment and the movement phase of turn 1. And that is always super frustrating. Let's just go back to the PowerPoint real fast. That was, I kind of talked all through this, but I have a little bit of blurb on screening right here and character interactions. But we spoke about it. I hope you guys really enjoyed this video. Thanks so much for attending. Please, 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 if you enjoyed this, or even if you didn't enjoy it, I would love and support and appreciate your support. Please like, subscribe, comment, and most importantly, share the video with other people. You can find me at Happy Crumpin' Wargaming 007 on YouTube. Or my Twitch handle is Johnny the Sand, where I am going to be live streaming at least 1 battle report a week. Those are always going to be commentary teaching battle reports, where typically I'll have another WTC player on with me or another very high-ranked player with me. And we kind of talk about, we teach why we're going along so that we can show you guys how to play the game better. And also, we just enjoy the game, so it's fun to watch. So anyway, I hope you all have an amazing day, and I really appreciate your time, and have a great one. Bye-bye.